One, two, three. All right, everybody. Welcome to Dudes Talking, the controlled demolition of America with Charlie Robinson. I am your host, John Brisson. Here with me, as always, is esteemed researcher, podcaster, and author, Charlie Robinson. How are you doing this evening, Charlie?
I am pretty good. We got a new year that we're into, and even though I have no reasons to be hopeful and optimistic, I'm gonna fake it until I make it. Right? I'm gonna just say, 2021, the year we turn it all around.
Yeah, I enjoy the optimism. I don't see that happening though, but I guess I could be wrong. We're already.
No, I think you're probably right.
We're already starting the year off with the bang, brother, with everything that's been happening in the news.
Yeah.
I mean, from the 1 hour conversation with the Secretary of State in Georgia and the back and forth of, did Trump sound like a mob boss? Did he didn't sound like a mob boss? You know, kind of the polarization right before January 6th, which is about to happen, which, in lieu to, the book that you wrote with Jeff Berwick, The Controlled Demolition of the American Empire. It's my belief that the clash, the radicalization of the two sides of America away from centrism, more towards, you have the right, radicalization of the right. A lot of it was, not all of it, but, there was a lot of the QAnon operation type radicalization, and in some people sadly fell into white nationalism too as well, granted not the numbers that the news media wants to make it out to be, right, but it did happen. All right.
Yep.
And then you have the radicalization on the left. You have progressives but joining Antifa and Black Lives Matter in droves and being pushed more to the left. You have people pushed more towards the right instead of being around in the middle. Even with the personal political ideologies, I myself am a conservative Christian, but even sometimes I gotta check myself, and I'm like, wait, because you see, in Congress they're doing all men and all women, right? And you're like, what
Right.
the? All men's not even. It doesn't mean men. It's just ridiculous.
Don't try to inject logic and reason into this. Just just sit back and watch this show. I mean, I am expecting President Mountain Dew Camacho to be sworn in a matter of weeks, because that's where we're going.
Yeah, it is, right. I mean, so I'm sitting here and I'm like, so I tried to read the news, and I try to cut through everybody's bias, because we all even have our own personal biases that we put in our writing as authors and stuff. Like, you can never escape it as much as you try to be objective. But so I'm trying to sit here and I'm like, well, something's gonna happen, and I pray to God it doesn't, on January the 6th. Something's coming to a head. There's going to be, clashes in D.C. To start off, how do you feel? Do you feel like that the polarization of the American public and the reemergence of the left-right paradigm, do you believe that to be part of the controlled demolition of the American empire, to a degree of to get people at each other's throats instead of after the elite?
Yeah, well, for sure. See, I'm not even actually opposed to the polarization, as long as it was the correct polarization. If it was us versus them,
yes,
being up at the top of the hill, I would be totally fine with that. But if it's left versus right, then it's a bunch of slaves fighting with each other, and that's obviously a distraction technique, and that's something that has been used for a very long time. It will continue to be used. It's very effective. It doesn't cost much to divide us up. It requires a little bit of effort, and you have to know where the buttons on either side, and there has to be a little bit of truth to what you're saying as well, to get people really riled up. And then you add in some carefully crafted lies, and prey on people's insecurities, and get them in this pressure cooker. I mean, at this point right now, even if it wasn't left versus right, even if it was just like AFC versus NFC, and we got in football, and we just got everyone and took away their jobs and their ability to move and kept them in their house and bombarded them with CNN all day long, people would explode over anything at this point. Now, then you take into it, you remove that ridiculous, comparison, and you add in actual things that matter, like like how you view your, well, like political parties, and people take that seriously. I don't, but I know that the vast majority of people do. So they associate, they tie part of their identity to the red team or the blue team.
Yes.
So an attack on the red team is an attack on me personally.
It's an emotional attack, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Yes. And that's of course not accidental.
No.
It's funny because, John, when they were doing the mask rollout in the UK recently, they didn't have a medical doctor make the announcement. They had a psychologist make the announcement.
Seems about right.
And I was like, whoa, that is both devious and genius at the same time, because that is who you are really. That's who you really need selling this. You need the people that understand the psychology behind this whole thing. The medical component, yeah, whatever. But that same sort of philosophy you need when you're talking about the United States in this. You need somebody that's not just like a political psychologist to understand how these things will where one side will take some perceived slight against them and run with it and make themselves, and make this out to be like, they're coming to get us. They're coming to strip away our liberties, and we got to take over DC, and we got to get the bullhorns out and all this. All this stuff has been role played. It's been role played not just in 2020 or the year before 2020, but we've got plenty of examples of these simulations, lockstep and the the things that the Rockefeller Foundations were putting out. And then we know about Tavistock Institute in the UK and how they role play these things. You take a look at so they don't leave anything to chance is my point. And the psychology of crowds has been studied very, very hard and wide, and they know what will make people. They know what will make people, what'll push their buttons in a way that will get them riled up. So we need to make some decisions as a society. Are we going to get lured into this fight, an unwinnable fight in which both parties get arrested and taken to the drunk tank? Or are we going to be strategic about this and say, this is not the place to fight? January 6th with a number on a calendar circled in red saying, come get me at this place in Washington, D.C. I mean, you're just asking for the feds to be all over it. I mean, why don't you just have the rallies at Langley while you're at it? You know what I mean? We'll make it real easy on them.
Or why not just have them on a random day? That was one of my issues with the CMP controlled protests that they were doing against the coronavirus lockdowns, is that they would announce, and there was a lot, and Davy Crocco did a lot of good research on this, showing that there was the same signs being handed out, and it was being put together by the Kochs and the CMP, and they were putting together these false. What it would be, astroturfing was more what it was. Protests against the lockdowns. The Kochs don't care about you and I. All right, the Koch family could care less about it. The DeVos family was also involved too as well. The CMP, they could care less. They could care less, but they're going to put the false representation out there that they care about you. So they're going to put you out there. They're going to, they're going to make sure that you stand out there with the signs and you get the photo op between, the healthcare worker, being bullied in the intersection, and that purple, and get that America's Frontline Doctors out and have Stella out there. And it's all, to create and further this grand divide. And to further continue the grand illusion, to make it seem like, oh, well, the conservatives really have my back. They're really fighting for me so life can go back to normal and I can go to work and everything, when in reality, they're not doing that. They're not doing that.
No, you mean the Koch brothers that care so much about their workers are out there, they're going to help support the working man? I mean, it's like, it's laughable. If people know. And that's maybe the biggest thing, is that and I know, but I mean, a lot of people just don't know who's really behind all of this. And it's like it's a limited hangout in terms of the protest. You're allowed to protest on this day at this place between the hours of this and that, and it's going to be filmed, and we're going to do this. And then when it's over, you got to go home. And that's not a protest. A protest is what happens in Paris for a year, when they say, well, we're going to increase the fuel surtax charges, and the French go, oh, no, you're not. We're going to burn this place to the ground. Every single weekend, we're going to make this our hobby. We're going to be out here every single weekend till you guys change this. And maybe on Tuesday as well, if we decide we want to. So there's different ways to do this. America's great at a lot of things. We're so good at so many things, but protesting, it ain't one of them. We're just too comfortable in our own existence to get out there and actually fight. And we also have this really devious, incorrect philosophy that things are going to get better. Just wait, just wait. And
well, that's
see.
what the QAnon operation was about, right? I mean, it was, enjoy the show, get your popcorn, sit back, patriots have it under control. That's what a lot of it was, correct?
Yeah. And that was, to me, look, I'm not a computer guy who knows all the Q drops and this and that, and and I'm not Nostradamus trying to piece together these quatrains, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not doing any of that. But the thing that tipped me off, the thing that made me feel very uncomfortable about the whole Q thing was the term trust the plan.
Yeah.
Because first of all, trust is earned. It's not granted. And it's certainly not granted with regards to Washington people that can't really reveal who they are. Everything about that said, don't trust me, including the slogan, trust me. And then the directive, be it overt or sort of implied, was to sit back and do nothing, was to wait, trust the plan. Everything's being taken care of. Moves are being made. They're rounding up the pedos. They're expanding Guantanamo Bay. They're doing all these things. Trust the plan. Sit back, get your popcorn ready for the show. That is not what you tell people when you are on the verge of a revolution, when you are really trying to change the system. You say things like, everybody get up. We're going to need all of you. This is what's happening. This is what's going on. This is who we are. This is what we're fighting about. Coded language, vague talk about, things that could mean, 8 different things. I couldn't, it sounded good, but I've been lied to before. And a lot of times that sounds good. So I'm not just going to believe this stuff because it sounds good. Now, I always said this from the beginning with like the first couple of times I even talked about this with Kev Baker. It would be like, I would say to Kev, if these people are correct and all the Q people are right, and they're expanding and they're doing all these things that they say, mm-hmm. I will be the first person to stand in front of a camera and say, you were right, I was wrong, people. Not Kev, I mean the Q people. You Q people were right. I was wrong. I didn't believe it. I thought you were crazy. You're not. You had it all planned. I salute you and good job. I'd be the first to say that. I eat my words and say, don't buy my books. I must be wrong. I've got it all wrong. But I never felt like I was going to need to do that because it never felt real to me. No. It always felt like a LARP. And it felt like it was designed to take a percentage of the population mm-hmm. that may have actually done something about it mm-hmm. and corral them off, move them into some other part of the reservation, corral them off, keep them there, keep them distracted and pacified and figuring out this puzzle that they're all trying to figure out so that they don't get in the way of everybody else, they don't get in the way of, trying to actually do something. So it just meant it never felt right to me. And here we are, like, what, 2 weeks left in the Donald Trump presidency officially or whatever.
Yes.
And it's like they've gone all in now on it. Now it's trust the plan. The election's all going to get overturned and everything. And it's like, please explain to me, give me a reason why I should trust anybody at this point about any plan, about anything. Yeah. I have not seen this plan working. I will say one thing to them though, to the Q people that if they're watching this, I'm sure they are screaming about. And I will acknowledge one thing. There certainly seemed like there were more arrests for child trafficking, low-level people, but it seemed like there were more arrests. I might be wrong about that.
Now, I make the argument to that. There's not. Me and Mark from Houstonic Live and George from CavDev.org have gone over the numbers as far as the arrests and everything, and
it wasn't more?
There's not more.
Okay, then that's fine. My follow-up to that was going to be either there were more or it was made to seem like there were more. And if that was the case, I would be like, great. But I don't know that Q would necessarily get credit for that or whatever. But I'm all in favor of pedophiles being rounded up and arrested and taken care of. And,
of course.
And being justice. And I don't care whose side does that. I would assume, I would be wrong, but I would assume and hope that both sides would be trying to do that.
Yes.
Like I said, I'd be wrong. But I'm in favor of that regardless. And if that was happening, then I would have given them credit. But like you said, okay, so the numbers don't even bear that out. So
no, they don't.
So then I got nothing. I got nothing for the Q people then. I see that as we all are waiting on our apologies then from you guys, because you LARPed for 3 years about this. I mean, how can this be any better than the people that were, trying to impeach Donald Trump every other month? You know what I mean?
I mean, at this point, Charlie, I mean, how is this any better? Really, with Trump, what did we get? We got 45 days to stop the spread. We got the initial lockdowns, right? We got Operation Warp Speed, which is one of the biggest debacles of any president. Oh, yeah. And one of the greatest assaults against our liberty. Trump was built up as a god emperor, and people pretty much worshipped him. So what did we get? What did we get? I mean, look, there were a few things that Trump did that I would agree with, but if I analyzed all the recent presidents, I'm pretty sure I could find something even Obama did that I agree with, as much as I despise Obama. Yeah. So, and some people will say, well, John, at least Trump put forth a face of conservatism, of Christianity, to move the Overton window over to the right. Well, okay, sure, but where has it got us now? With Biden and Harris being president and vice president, and the Democrats, because of Q-tardedness, and I have no other way of putting it, with Lynn Wood and Sidney Powell telling the Republicans to not vote for Perdue and Loeffler in Georgia because they cannot certify that it's going to be an accurate election, and in doing so, literally handing the Democrats control of the Senate, which means the Democrats will have control of the House, the Senate, and the presidency, and the vice presidency. Now, of course, in reality, that really doesn't matter. They all answer to the world order and to their masters and to their puppeteers, and so on and so forth. But at least if you're looking at it from just a standard, optics game, right, and whatever that may or may not amount to anything, that was one of the stupidest things I've ever seen in my entire life.
Trust the plan, everyth's fine.
Yeah. Don't vote in Georgia because we can't certify that your vote matters. It's just so then when Loeffler and Perdue lose and the Democrats have majority in the Senate, so what does that mean? What does that mean? I mean, it just means everything that every sort of fantasy that they've had will get rammed through with almost no sort of measures to stop it. But I always assume that's how it happens anyway. Yeah.
I don't really think that it's like there might be a Ron Paul out there who's going, whoa, slow down. But for the most part, these people are all friends. These people, they play fight on television. They go to they're all getting money from the same lobbyists. They're all getting money from the same corporations. They're all going to the same functions, or there's enough overlap. They staffers that work for them work for some other person. This is like at the end of a football game when both teams are done, and they go to center of the field and they're all shaking hands and chatting and everything because they're friends, because a lot of these guys have the same agents. A lot of these guys used to play on the same teams.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of so it's like it's the same thing with politics. I mean, they may fight on when the camera's on, but afterwards, look, in order for this whole thing to work, they have to get along to a certain extent. So they do that. And this is political theater. I don't like the idea of the Democrats having full control of all of that. I don't like the idea of the Republicans having full control of it either. I don't like any of these people.
No, me either. Me either.
My point is that I don't trust any of them. And it might be a little bit better if you have one side of maniacs checking on the other side of maniacs, and you have some sort of checks and balances, but you still have maniacs running the show. I mean, it's not like we've brought in like a conscience or something, or like the voice of good and reason to sort this whole thing out. We have one batch of criminals that's supposed to check the other batch of criminals, and it's like, oh, I can't believe my side lost. I can't believe everything's going to hell.
I mean, that's exactly what it is, right? I mean, it's wrestling at its finest, as being Billy Ray Valentine used to say, you know. And I mean, it really truly is. It is sad, you know. I mean, I voted for Trump. I fell for it, you know. I fell for the deception. I never was a QAnon believer because there was just something about it just didn't sit right with me. But I remember early on, I was playing Breath of the Wild at the time it got released for the Wii U, in the Switch, but I only had a Wii U. And I remember turning on Jordan Sather, seeing him just when he just had started his YouTube channel, because he was being shown on 4chan, and just listening to it, I'm like, this guy's just secret space program. It's just too much. It's just too much. So I never fell for the Q deception. But I was all in for Trump, 100%. I mean, so much so that I thought that Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity had flipped, and that they were, you know, that they were our guys, and Trump had them, and it was silly. Looking back on it now, I mean, 2014 version of John Brisson would have slapped 2016 version of John Brisson upside the head and say, "What are you doing? You knew that they're all the same, right, left. It doesn't matter, you know."
Yeah, but in your defense, and I kind of felt the same way about this in 2016. I would have voted for Satan himself over Hillary Clinton. You know what I mean? Like,
nah. I get what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying.
I didn't. So my problem with Donald Trump is actually more before he became president than anything. I just don't like the guy's personality. That's just not somebody I like.
Well, I mean, he is a bully. I mean, Don Jeffries has written a book on bullies, you know, and Trump's a bully.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't like his personality. I didn't care for that. I didn't like the way he treated people in business. I know from working in real estate in Las Vegas that, you know, he would talk about the Trump Tower in Las Vegas is the best building in town. It is not. It is not even in the top 10. It's just not. It's a Hilton at best. And there's nothing wrong with a Hilton, but that's what the Trump Tower is. It's a Hilton, essentially. So I just didn't like any of that stuff. But when he ran against Hillary Clinton, I mean, I'd go for Trump over her any day of the week. But that doesn't mean I necessarily liked him. I'll tell you what, there are a couple things I did like about Donald Trump.
Campaign Donald Trump, not to interrupt you, campaign Donald Trump was slightly different than President Donald Trump. I mean, there were, you know, some things when he was calling out that the United States has done some bad things in the behest of the Central Intelligence Agency. You know, you're like, wait, what? What? Huh?
Yeah.
Huh? Like, who says that? You know,
I'm going to vote for this guy before he gets killed.
But then going back and listening to it now, though, however, with a new fresh set of ears.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were some things that he said that could have warned us off too as well, that we Trump's our guy. Don't worry about it. You know, don't worry about it.
So being an outsider was a good thing. Even though we all know you're not, when you're like in that class, you're not as far outside as
he wasn't an outsider. He claimed he was, but he wasn't.
He was an outsider in the sense that he didn't live in Washington, D.C., wasn't a lifelong senator. He had switched parties. He'd done some things that made you not necessarily think that this guy was a super geeky, like political wonk guy. You know, this is a guy that liked power and money and control and everything. And hey, president gives you that. Being the president gives me that. I'll take all that. But as far as like, ooh, I want to get in the nitty gritty of how these bills are passed, I don't think Donald Trump gives a shit about that.
No.
So there were, and he came out guns blazing against the media, calling CNN fake news. God, I love that. That's great, right? So there were some things. Now they might have just been theater, but there were some things that I like. You know, when he was on the debate stage and Hillary Clinton said the thing, and he says, "Or you'd be in jail,"
which never happened. It's been 4 years. I've been waiting.
I've been waiting too. I think that won him the election, though, because everyone was like, "Ooh, burn!" You know, it was like hitting Hillary in the stomach, because, you know, it was like, "Oh my God, think of the possibilities. What if this guy wins, and what if he actually puts Hillary Clinton in jail?" Now, if you stopped right there and with your line of thinking and voted for Donald Trump, you'll be disappointed, because it was never going to happen.
But we thought it was.
There were a lot of people
thought it was, though, however.
I think there were a lot of people that thought, so you're saying there's a chance, you know? I'll give it a shot. 1 in a million, whatever. What if he does put her in jail? I mean, he's got to be better than her, right? Oh, well, Donald Trump doesn't know how to navigate. You know, Newt Gingrich said the thing. He's going to have a hard time in Washington, D.C. He's not a member of the secret societies. And you're like, yes, I know that, Newt. That is kind of the reason why he is attractive to some people, because he's not a member of these secret societies.
But then you find out he was Jesuit trained at Fordham University, and his family's been a part of the John Birch Society and the CMP forever and a day. So we didn't know that at the time, you know.
And there's that, of course. There's that, and there's the fact that if you're you know, getting put through bankruptcy proceedings, and you've got Wilbur Ross from Rothschild working out your bankruptcy, you're in the club.
Yeah,
you're in a club. You might not be in that particular Washington D.C. club, but you're club adjacent for sure. You're in with some of the people that are in the big clubs. So, you know, this outside. Now, if you or I became president, we'd really be outsiders. Donald Trump, not as much of an outsider as he wanted us to believe. But he was not a lifetime politician, and so that's sort of appealed to some people. Yeah. I can understand the appeal of that. I can also understand the appeal of voting for Donald Trump because he's not Joe Biden. Because who knows what Joe Biden is, except an empty vessel to be whatever's poured into him from the deep state or the CIA or Israel or China or whoever gives him the most money. He'll be that free form thing that you need him to be. He'll do whatever you need him to do, as long as it's not giving rights and freedoms to the people. He'll do whatever you need him to do. So I can understand, once again, people voting for Trump simply because he's not Biden. I can also understand people voting for Biden because he's not Trump. So it goes both ways here, and I think maybe that cancels each other out. But
yeah.
But the election component of this recent election that we've gone through and everything, you know, I'm not on the Trump team and I'm not on the Biden team, so I feel like I'm a little bit more objective a little bit more. I don't care for either one of the guys. Yeah. I think that I'm pretty upfront about that. But that being said, I just have a hard time. And this is not scientific in any way, shape, or form, and I recognize this, but it's just the eyeball test. But, man, I'm having a hard time believing that Joe Biden got 80 million votes when he couldn't get a dozen people to show up at his rallies. Trump did. Trump got thousands. Say what we want about him. And
call it a personality.
He's got that. He's got that thing. You know, when people talk about in Hollywood, like, oh, someone walks in the room and you go, he's got that thing. Your eyes are on him. Mm-hmm. He's got energy. And when it comes to a presidential election, they will tell you that every election that they've been tracking this stuff, the candidate with the most energy wins. Doesn't have to be positive energy. It could be negative energy. It just has to be energy. It has to be buzz and talk. And Donald Trump had that off the charts. And Joe Biden had none of it. I mean, I'm talking about Michael Dukakis level boredom with Joe Biden. Who was enthusiastic about him?
But people hated Trump. That's the counter argument.
difference.
That's the counter argument to that is is, and Billy Ray Valentine had been saying it for like months, and I was like, CMP wants Trump in, it's what's going to happen, you know. And then I saw that leaked CMP itinerary after the election, that it was going to be a contested election, and Rasmussen was there, and John Kenneth Blackwell was there, and I was like, well, wait a minute, what? And then and so, but that's what I think it was, Charlie. I think it's that, yeah, there was a lot of people who loved Trump, and yes, there's election rigging and voter manipulation in every election. It's a selection, in my opinion. Okay, they probably put two people out there. It's kind of like the bet over trading places, and whoever comes on top, okay, you're president, but you do what we tell you to do. All right. But that's the thing is there were a lot of people that hated Trump.
Oh yeah.
And it wasn't that they liked Biden. And even the exit polls showed that, Charlie, was that they voted for Biden because they hated Trump. Not because they liked Biden, but they hated Trump.
Yeah. Well, think about let's go back to this day after inauguration 2017, right? Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Hillary Clinton, Brenda Snipes, all these, Tom Perez, all these DNC people sitting around the table, just trying to put the pieces back together and figure out how did this happen? How did we get beat by a game show host? How did we get beat by a guy that is on camera saying grab him by the pussy? I mean, how do we lose to this? How can we make sure this never happens again? We have 4 years to get it right. Let's put our heads together. Let's find the right candidate. Let's get some enthusiasm, and let's make sure that something like this never happens again. They go 4 years and they come up with Joe Biden. Joe Biden is the answer to that question. It just seems like why wouldn't you can still get a guy that'll do exactly what you want him to do, but could have a little bit more enthusiasm.
Not for the controlled demolition of America, because look at how much the right and the Trump people hate Biden. The only way they could have done it any better is the way I thought that they were going to do it, and I still thought Trump was going to win if it came out with this scenario, was Hillary Clinton was going to run against Trump again.
Ooh.
That's the only way that they could make enough division and hate. Because if they would have ran somebody else, I mean, who do the Democrats have? Who do they have? Kamala Harris, which she might end up being our president. Tulsi Gabbard.
Hey, if Tulsi had run, and I know she's a member of the CFR, and she, they've all got questions about them. But if we made a list of some chart, she would have the least amount of questions, in my opinion. I would have said fine.
Wait for my show on Tulsi. I might change your opinion on that.
Yeah, well, listen, I know that there's, look, the lineup that was of the Democratic Party that was running for president looked like the bar from Star Wars. You know what I mean?
It was
a
not
bunch
good.
Of weirdos, and so you weren't going to ever really get a good one. But still, Joe Biden, really? Like, why would you cut it that close? You could have had, let's just say Bernie Sanders. There were still people that were enthusiastic about Bernie Sanders, not just because they didn't like Trump, but because they actually liked Bernie Sanders. I feel like they could have made it. They could have. I mean, in the end, I guess the ends justify the means, and they'll say, "Well, we won with Biden, so what difference does it make?" But I just don't think they won with Biden. I think they cheated. I don't know that it'll ever get found out. I don't know that anyone will do anything about it. I don't know that.
But let me ask you this: let's say that they did, and they did do something about it, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Does it matter?
I mean, it maybe on the surface it matters. It would matter to all the Trump people. It would. You want to kickstart that Q thing for 4 more years. You have Donald Trump go figure out that everything was rigged, get the people involved, and overturn the results of the election and throw it in his. Then now I've got to hear 4 more years of trust the plan. The plan.
You're going to hear that. You're going to hear that. You're going to hear that anyway at this point.
I know. But there. I guess it just depends. I guess it depends on what the plan is, what the goal is.
Yeah.
Is the goal to unify the nation, and get things done, I don't think that's the goal. But if that was the goal, if the goal was let's get the right candidate in there to get some things changed, let's roll back this Trump insanity. Let's get somebody in there that's logical and reasonable and can work with people and is a person we could then you nominate, say, Bernie Sanders, who's got his problems for sure. You put him out there, and you've got a huge portion of the population that's like, I really like Bernie, and then you've got another portion that's, I don't really care about Bernie, but I'm a Democrat, so I'll like him because he's better than Trump. So you'd capture both audiences. Instead, what you've just got is, I voted for Biden because I hate Trump. Well, you're going to get those people anyway. Why not put somebody in there with a little bit of enthusiasm to grab the undecided votes? Why wouldn't they do that? And my response, or the answer to my own question in my head is, the only way they would have run Joe Biden out there is if they knew they had it in the bag before it started. Because he's such an unlikable, unenthusiastic, 47 years, swamp creature, son with a drug problem, who's done some really questionable things. And I'm not even talking about the drug. I'm talking about the stuff with his brother's wife and all that. Sketchy dude from a family that has a lot of questions. Why would why run that guy if you're trying to win this thing? Why not make it easier on yourself and run somebody that'll still do all the things you want him to do, like Bernie Sanders, who proved that he's a total cuck. He'll do whatever they need him to do. Except stand out there and tell people not to vote for Hillary Clinton, which he didn't.
Or tell people to vote for Biden.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
just like Tulsi.
He'll go out there and say, "You guys got to throw away your principles and vote for my opponent." What? So, I just didn't. It didn't make any sense to me that they would run this really unlikable guy unless they knew they had it in the bag. And then I start to watch towards the tail end of this. Well, really the last 6 months or so of the campaign. Yes, it was weird, because we had Corona situation and masks and restrictions on the movement of people and large crowds and things like that. But one half of the one party was doing fine. They were having big rallies. The other party was sitting in these little circles and saying, and showing 12 people in the audience. And you're like, this is embarrassing.
But did anybody but how progressives looked at the coronavirus differently, though? Did anybody analyze the rallies for Biden as far as their internet traffic? Has anybody done that research to see if it was on par with Trump, if not higher? I'm just curious.
The only thing I ever saw with regard to internet traffic was when Biden would do these live streams.
Mm-hmm.
And he did a live stream after the election. It was way after the election. It was might have been like early December. And I remember seeing that during his live stream, he had a little over 4,000 people on it. And I remember thinking to myself, Tim Pool's live stream from last night had 13 times more people than Joe Biden's live stream.
But then again, it could be that they don't care about Joe. They just hate Trump. I do believe that all elections have some sort of shenanigans on a national level, right?
Oh, yeah.
But then again, really, no one cared when in 2004 the CNP and John Kenneth Blackwell rigged Ohio to go to George W. Bush. And, of course, John Kerry and George W. Bush, both bonesmen, whoever wins, we lose. And no one gave a flying flip about that. And John Kenneth Blackwell is on Twitter right now and making the laps on, Steve Bannon's War Room. And, of course, John Kenneth Blackwell, CFR, CNP member, he's a twofer. He's a twofer, not one for, he's a twofer. Mm-hmm. And he also is implicated in the assassination of the IT consultant Michael Connell with Karl Rove. Okay, he's literally one of the people spearheading hashtag Stop the Steal.
Mm.
A guy who also, and I've done an episode on John Kenneth Blackwell. I've pardoned the name. He's on some international election integrity committee, which is funded by George Soros. but no one cares about any of this stuff,
No.
It's like, and then when we're arguing, look, both Biden and Trump are horrible in my opinion, and I think Trump was to set up for Biden at this point, as crazy as that sounds, unless bar some crazy shenanigans that might happen on the 6th. Who freaking knows at this point? You still have to leave out that window of, okay, is this the controlled demolition of America? Is this what happens? Is somehow they, through military coup or something, they instilled Donald Trump as God Emperor? And, you have Michael Flynn calling for limited martial law, whatever the hell that means, with Thomas Zodowski. And putting a full-page ad in the Mooney-owned Washington Times. It's like, that's what I'm afraid that this is all leading to, Charlie, and I want to get your opinion on it, and I guess you have talked about it too, is my biggest concern about all this is this just, again, to get us at each other's throats and get us to chase endless carrots on a stick, and just, it never ends, and eventually for us, I get dragged out of my house because I didn't trust the plan, and I'm getting beaten by patriot conservatives, even though I'm a Christian conservative, because I don't go along with God Emperor Trump, and I didn't shut my mouth on Twitter. I know that sounds crazy, but was Alex Jones, as Josh Reeves always said, the Pied Piper to the FEMA camps? Has it reached that point, is what I'm asking.
Well, first of all, I know that sounds crazy, and you were being a little bit facetious in what you were saying, but not much, because this stuff happened in the town square. It's for hundreds, if not thousands of years. When somebody came out with a differing opinion, they were, you think that the sun is the center of the galaxy, or or of the solar system? Whoa, how dare you? We're going to burn you at the stake. So differing opinions, even if they're minor variations, have been met with horrible repercussions over the years. It could very easily be headed that way. If the plan was to unify the nation, they would have brought in a different candidate. If the plan is to divide the nation, you can divide it with Biden, but man, if you really wanted to divide it, like finish the job, you swing it back to Trump at the last minute through some fluke and make him the winner, because he's going to do the "I told you so" for the next 4 years.
And then will the cities burn? Will the cities finally burn because the leftists? I mean, I thought that's what was really going to happen, Charlie. I really did. When Biden won, I thought that was really what was going to happen. Was Trump was going to reverse it, and then then the cities were going to burn, and then martial law, and then, but that doesn't look like that's going to happen now. And now I'm kind of like, okay, well, what's this about? I'm expecting some sort of evil versus evil clash, right? Like the two world orders clashing against each other, puppeting all of us to get us to fight their, another civil war. Like I'm expecting this to happen, and then with all the emotion build up, Charlie, is it just going to fizzle out? Is it just people are just going to throw up their hands and go, oh well, Biden's president, okay, time to go home? Like, am I missing something here? Because that looks like that's what may happen. I didn't think that's what was going to happen. So,
where I've been wrong about this stuff, not recently, but as a kid growing up, I had this mistaken belief that the right were these insensitive white devil pricks that only care about Wall Street and making money, and if hey, take care of yourself, if not, get out of my way, I'll steamroll you and everything. And I thought of the left as being way more compassionate and more reasonable, and let's talk about this, and we don't have to fight every single war, and let's take care of some of the sick, and let's take care of some of the poor, maybe not all of them, but let's at least try. That was what I had in my head. That was the image I had in my head. And what I have found is that it's the opposite. The left is insane. They're unwilling or unable to engage in conversations. They're so dumbed down. All they know is react, Molotov cocktails and fire. I always thought that would have been the right.
But it is the right. It is the right. Hold on. It is the right with the QAnon operation. When I'm literally listening to people that are going, that are going on a party bus, patriots that are part of the operation, down there to D.C., literally saying that they will not talk to anyone that slightly differs in their opinion because they don't feel comfortable in doing so. That's called an echo chamber. That's horrible.
For sure. Yeah, that's not good. That's not good either. But Biden gets 80 million votes. Everyone's scratching their heads, going, "How he couldn't fill a phone booth? Why does he gets 80 million votes?" The right didn't burn the cities down. The left did this summer. The left are the ones that acted.
The right might.
The right might, but so far they have been showing restraint. I've been sort of impressed by it. I don't know that, like you said, I don't know that it'll last, but they have taken this much better than the left took when Donald Trump won. We saw the screaming and the women in their cars, recording videos where they're freaking out and they can't stay, and people screaming at the sky and yelling at people. That they came unglued. I have just thought, well, maybe that's how it's going to be after every election. But the right didn't do that in the absence. They're still fighting. Maybe it's because they feel like there's still hope and that there's, and then if there's an inauguration and Biden and Kamala Harris are up there, and then maybe that'll come. I don't know. I don't think it will, though. But I've just been very, I don't know. I've been disappointed with the left over the last 10 years or so with their behavior. As like the compassionate left, if you say something they don't want you to say, they'll wish that your kids die of cancer on Twitter. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, you guys you're so supportive. You want equal rights for everybody. Oh, but if you don't believe the way I do, then you can die, and I hope you burn. And you're like, what? So my tolerance for the people on the left is almost zero these days. And it's not because I just woke up one day and decided I don't like them anymore. I'm not on the right either. But I feel like the people that lean more to the right are at least willing to have a conversation about it.
No.
Might not understand it, might not agree with you. They're willing to engage in it. The people on the left, I don't feel like
I disagree with you on that, because I have progressive friends. I have progressive neighbors, and we're able to have conversations. Now, granted, there is the radicalization of the left, just like you have the radicalization of the right, and you have the media strongly focusing on both to make you think that every progressive is unhinged, every progressive wants you to...
That's a good point, too, because the media magnifies the insanity, for sure.
And so if you actually sit down and actually talk with these people, and I'm not saying it's easy. I'm a Christian conservative. A lot of them really dislike me, all right? Just based off of that alone, once they find out that aspect, they're like, whoa, But, as a Christian conservative, I get what you're saying, and I empathize with what you're saying. Like, I understand it, and a part of me agrees with it, all right? But then a part of it also sees the toxicness of the MAGA cult and the toxicness of QAnon, just like you have the toxicness of progressive circular logic and communism and all those issues too, right? Mm-hmm. So you have, the radicalization of the left, the far left and the far right, and both of them are echo chambers. Both of them, now, granted, you didn't have the right per se burning down cities this time, but the far right has done that in the past. And you also have
which is why I thought they were like that.
And you also, but it always switches back and forth, though. And you also have, again, whether they're true or not, you do have, Jay had mentioned it in the chat, you do have, the people that were set up or not set up that wanted to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer, whether or not that was an operation, whether or not, when the FBI is involved, usually it's let's set up some guys and go home. It's a wrap, but there were some murders that were associated with people who had been radicalized with QAnon too as well. Lee, if you could tell me in the chat, I'm sorry I don't remember the guy's name, but the guy who killed his brother with a sword, so there are instances of that occurring. And so I think it's kind of like the ebb and flow that you see throughout history, right? Where the left used to be, like you said, anti-war. They used to be very much pro free speech and First Amendment, kind of like during the hippie generation, right? And then now the right is more for free speech than the left is. So it's kind of like this. That's how it always happens. It goes back and forth. Like, for example, conservative Christians, many of them in the early 1900s, were pro-abortion and pro-eugenics. Okay, and then it flipped back to how early Christianity was, where the early Christians, the Didache and stuff like that, were not that way. So it's kind of like this ebb and flow, this back and forth on people's ideological views and people's beliefs. And so the left right now are the ones that are kind of like anti-free speech, when it used to be the right, and then it's probably eventually going to flip back and forth eventually anyway. And look, I understand, I get it, as me being a Christian conservative, I get, like, for example, when they did the all men, all woman thing in Congress, yeah, that upset me. I was like, this is ridiculous. But then a part of me also they want me to get upset. They want me to get mad at this because I feed into it. And Emily Moyer has talked a lot about Bucky and James Wolfe. Thank you very much, Lee. It's very tragic what happened between those the two brothers. But the thing is like Emily Moyer has said, they want us to care either through love or through hate. All right, if we kind of just shrug our shoulders and just, they're not going to get anything from it.
Yeah.
So they put these stories in the media to radicalize both sides. Like, they have progressives thinking if someone's a Trump supporter, they're a racist. They hate everyone. They're watch out, they may shoot you. They don't care about your health or anything like that because they want to go back to work. They're complete anti-vaxxers, like all of this stuff, and so you have the media giving the worst personifications to both sides, and so that you can't sit down with someone with opposite political views of you and just be Americans and just talk stuff out, because it's become so personalized. The psychological warfare and the spiritual warfare is so thick, all right, and so strong that everything is emotional now. Like you and I have slight disagreements, but we're able to have discussions. I have George, from CapDev.org, for example, where he is a progressive, but he's one of the best researchers about, the witch hunt cases, the witch hunt narrative cases that are out there. And him and I are really good friends. Now politically we believe in completely two separate things, all right? But we're able to have a conversation. And so the left and the right on the extremes have been made to look like villains so that you can cast your Emmanuel Goldstein 1984 Day of Hate upon them instead of doing it upon the government. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, and if you look at this as a teeter-totter with the right on one side, the left on the other, and the fulcrum right in the middle, that's been moved over the years. So, you could have been the same person you always were, standing in the same spot on that teeter-totter, and yet everything shifted except you. And now you used to be on the right, now you used to feel like you were on the left, now you find yourself on the right. You're like, hey, listen, I never thought I was on the right. I'm pro free speech, but I was kind of on the left, and now they're totally anti-free speech and doing things like pulling down statues, like that's going to fix anything. And so I find that I stayed the same. The ideologies have shifted a little bit. So now someone's like, oh, you're on the right. And it's like, I'm on the right. Why? Because I want free speech. I've always wanted free speech. But 15 years ago, that would have made me on the left more than it would have made me on the right. So the what we believe in has even sort of shifted along the road. And I think it depends on who's in office too. So it's like if Donald Trump had come out and been in favor of something, the left would have been against it at all odds. Even if the something he was for was good for them, there was a component of them that wanted to fight him on everything. And I think there's a component of people that want to fight, when the other team's president wins, they always want to pick that out. I mean, you and I are better about being objective and pointing out both the flaws on both sides.
Yes.
You know, we're not going to be like, Trump did nothing wrong, but Obama, you know, ran out of bombs. He dropped so many bombs, he ran out of bombs. What about Trump's bombs? Oh, no. We would both be like, yeah, he bombed a bunch of places too, and we don't like that. You know, we're consistent in that. But there are people that think that the only crime Obama committed during his 8 years in office was that he one time wore a tan suit at a press conference. And you'll never be able to convince them that insanity and tyranny and it doesn't necessarily just wear a red team sweater or a blue team sweater. Like this stuff goes across party lines. And if we're so married to, I have no problem with people being married to their beliefs. I think they should be married to their beliefs, what they believe, what they think is right, what they feel, but not to a political party, because the beliefs shift. You know, you could find yourself being, you know, saying, oh, I was always a, you know, socially, you know, liberal, but fiscally conservative. And now I'm older and now I find myself still being fiscally conservative. So does that make me a Republican? And it'd be like, well, I don't like those people, but does it make me a Democrat? Well, I don't like them either. You know, so as long as you sort of anchor you're loyal to your beliefs, vote your beliefs, not the party, because either way, the parties are going to screw you over either way. And there's an interesting thing that I've heard people talk about, and with regard to, you know, a Democratic president will come in and do all of the crummy things that the Republican president couldn't do, that the Democratic voters would find flaws with. They would be so angry if a Trump did something, you know, did this thing.
Yes.
But Biden could do the same thing and they'd give him a pass because he's their guy. So there's a certain need for this to go back and forth.
But you could say vice versa to the Trump supporters and the MAGA people too as well, though, however. Because there are a lot of things that Trump did as far as taking away our Second Amendment rights, whether it was not pushing against red flag laws and saying take the guns first, due process second, or banning bump stocks that would have never happened during an Obama administration, but happened during a Trump administration. So much so the NRA, and yes, I know the NRA is controlled by the CNP, with Wayne LaPierre being a major Council for National Policy member and Oliver North also being president of being president of NRA, who was part of Ron Contra affair and CNP member himself too as well for many years. You know, the NRA was actually threatening to pull their support of Donald Trump because he was stripping our Second Amendment rights. Now, you can argue that the NRA really doesn't stand for our Second Amendment rights completely, truly either, you know, but, you know, that's another discussion. But so that becomes the problem, you know, and I think that's one of the reasons why Trump came in, was for them to allow kind of a regroup of the world order, for them to do some things and make some moves under the radar so nobody else could pay attention to them. I mean, think about it. Medical martial law and Operation Warp Speed. You think that would have happened under Obama? You think people would have let that happen under Obama?
No.
Oh,
No, exactly. That's the point. If you want to put policies in place that are detrimental to the left, you have a left president do it.
Yes.
If you want to put policies into place that are detrimental to the right, you don't have the left president do it.
No.
You have the right president do it, because his team will allow it to happen, because he's on their side. He's there to screw them over. So get ready for a bunch of policies right now coming. If Biden is the president for the next 4 years, get ready for a bunch of policies that do not favor the left.
No.
Imposed by somebody on the left, because that's how they seem to mask it. That's how they seem to get these things go. You find people cheerleading for policies that they should never be cheerleading for, simply because it's their guy putting it forward. And so they're like, he's on our team, so we're going for him. And you're absolutely right when you say, like, Operation Warp Speed under Obama, who rolled out Obamacare and all that stuff, and then dropped so many bombs in the Middle East, they ran out of bombs. You think Obama, in conjunction with Big Pharma and the military, that would have put people over the edge. There's no way he could have done that. But Trump could, like you said.
And Trump did it. And he did. And still calls it a miracle to this day.
So I'm here saying, I don't like Joe Biden. I like Trump more than Biden, which isn't saying anything. I think that Biden stole the election. Let me rephrase that. I think that the left stole the election. I'm not going to say Biden necessarily.
Not the
did.
left, but the world order stole the election.
Right.
The CFR,
I think they put their guy in there.
Yes.
And even though I'm saying all those things, I recognize, how could I have any enthusiasm for Donald Trump after he put this Operation Warp Speed into play? And you know, and the role of the military in this, and you can read the articles of Whitney Webb, that she's done a lot of work on this. It is, to say it's devious and scary is an understatement, what they have planned. So it's like, I find myself in an unenviable position.
Yeah.
Of having the left in general and the Biden team in particular doing so many things that I find repulsive, and they're co-conspirators in the mainstream media that are totally involved in this. I see them making up so many things and making up, you know, accusations or spinning the truth or writing headlines in a very misleading way, that I actually find myself defending Donald Trump from time to time. Not because I like him, but just because I find the attacks on him aren't even anchored in reality.
But is it? But isn't that by design, though?
Probably.
I mean, Jeff Zucker and The Antidote, shout out to Jeremy Rothkosho and Greg McCarran, have done excellent research on this. I mean, Jeff Zucker, long-term friends with Donald Trump. CNN got the best press ever going after Trump and covering them, and even platform boosting him during the 2016 election. It's by design, in my opinion. It's literally by design to make people rally behind Trump. Trump literally was one of the greatest through Cambridge Analytica, with Joe Zamel in Israel and Flynn and Bannon and the Mercers being involved with Cambridge Analytica and the Council for National Policy, was one of the greatest psychological manipulations, you mentioned Tavistock earlier, that has ever been ran on the American public to make people think that Donald Trump was their guy.
Yeah.
It's truly sad. I mean, I get it, because you're saying, I hate them both, but maybe, and I would even make the argument, I thought things would have been better under Trump for a second term, because then finally we could put the QAnon nonsense to rest and be like, well, nothing happened. It's been 8 years. What are you going to say now? All right. But then I even go back to argue this with you, that I think it would have been better if Hillary Clinton would have won in 2016, because it would have never led to a fracturing of the truth movement. It would have never led to a fracturing of a divide of the country that's this great, and people would have held Hillary Clinton's feet to the fire, and maybe, possibly, and I highly doubt this, I give this less than a 0.01% chance, something would have been done.
Interesting. Yeah. I never considered that, because I must confess, I fall into, how people are like, I hate Trump. I hate him. I feel that way about Hillary Clinton.
Me too. I'm not going to lie. I do as well. Her. I despise her too.
And this is the part that makes me think that everything is theater, is that they knew that there was a segment of the population that despised her, and they ran her anyway, or she ran herself anyway. They were asking for trouble with that, much like asking for trouble with Biden. In the end, maybe it'll work out Biden's favor where it didn't for Hillary. But if you were really trying to win, how do you run her? How do you run her? She's so unlikable, unless you're trying to lose, unless you're trying to run a psychological operation on the American people, where you put two disgusting candidates out there. I mean, say what you want about Obama, and I've said and written plenty of horrible things about Obama. If you just took his personality...
He's a likable guy.
He's a likable guy. On camera, you take all of the birth certificate, wife stuff out of it, and you just... I could sit down, if I didn't know anything about the bombings, and I could sit down with that. If I was seated next to that guy on a flight from LA to New York, and I had to talk to him for a couple hours, and I didn't know his backstory, I could talk basketball with that guy.
He'd be charming.
Talk about all kinds of stuff.
He'd be charming.
Be like, he's a nice guy, you know. Hillary Clinton, I couldn't. I don't know too many people that would see her as being. I mean, I guess some people are like, oh, she's a queen, you know, whatever. But I think most people just would. Within 5 seconds, you would get the feeling that that lady hates me, doesn't want to talk to me either, and I don't want to talk to her.
And as long as you like Trump, because of his ENTJ personality, as long as you like him and you give him praise, you get along with him just fine. The moment you take those things away, you won't. So.
Yeah. I would have hoped that somebody that billed themselves as such a great businessman who is used to making important decisions about hirings and firings would have been better about his hirings and firings.
Yeah.
And yet his drain the swamp was nothing short of comical.
Drain the swamp to fill the swamp?
Draining the swamp by inviting John Bolton and Elliot Abrams and guys like that. It's like unless you were writing parody comedy, you couldn't have come up with anything better than that. The problem is, of course, is that he was being serious. And we know how this stuff works. We know that there are people behind the scenes. I know that AIPAC told him, or an AIPAC-like person said to him, John Bolton's going to be our guy in there. You know, whether it's Citigroup doing Obama, you know, writing up Obama's cabinet, or it's somebody else filling Trump's cabinet. It's the only explanation for guys like Elliot Abrams and John Bolton winding up back, recyculating back into this whole thing. And like we don't have a different pool of people we can pull from, or are we just going to bring the same cast of psychopaths back? And so, you know, it's discouraging. It's discouraging that a guy that billed himself as being really great at hiring and firing people, in the end, we could have really used a skill like that. Yeah. There's plenty of firings that needed to happen. And of course, the flip side to that is once you fire all these people, then you've got to hire, and you've got to hire right. But, you know, either he's surrounded by the worst people in the world, which I think is definitely possible, or he doesn't really know these people that he put in positions of power, which I think is he probably doesn't know the lower.
Well, he's not playing 16-dimensional chess. His IQ's not above 200.
I mean, where's the checkmate?
Yeah,
I mean, know how this game goes. You get 4 years, maybe 8, but you know, if you want to get it the 8th, the 5, 6, 7, and 8, you got to do something in 1, 2, 3, and 4. You know, you've got to at least make it look like something's coming. If he had actually arrested some of these people that he fantasized about arresting early on during his campaign in 2016, he'd have another term. But that didn't happen. So there's some. I mean, in the end, if Trump loses this, he kind of has himself to blame for it. What good is it to threaten or tease letting Assange out after the election? If you want to win, if you want to get a certain amount of people for saying, I'm going to pardon Julian Assange, do it before the election. Wait, why would you do it after you? I mean, I hope he does it, by the way, and there's no indication that he actually will. I really, frankly, don't care as long as he puts Assange.
He also said he didn't know Assange. So.
Right, yeah. WikiLeaks, I love WikiLeaks. Julian Assange. Who's he? Never heard of him before. Right. So it's like this 8-dimensional chess. Aren't you supposed to make these moves when the game is still being played? I mean, if you've lost the game, now why are you trying to release Assange? I don't know. I mean, I hope he does. Like, to be clear, I hope he does either way. But from a strategic standpoint, if you'd put a couple of these people in prison, if you'd busted up a couple of the banks, or you'd done some of the things, just some of them, it might be a different conversation. But it's like, did you? I mean, I feel like Trump maybe assumed he was just going to get the second term.
I mean, think about it. Kushner,
Ugh.
Barr,
Yeah.
Bolton, Haspel, Haley,
Forgot about her.
Ross, Mnuchin. I mean,
Not good guy. Not a psychopath. Pompeo got him in there.
Pompeo, you know.
Let's just call it for what it is. A heavily Israel-friendly group of people in there.
Very much so, with Jesuit interests, like through Pompeo, for example. I mean, look at Mike Pompeo when he was a congressman of Kansas. He was lobbying for GM, genetically modified. He was lobbying for companies like Monsanto. That was his. He was doing that. So wait, he's our guy. Did people just forget about all this? I don't get, at this point. It just blows my mind, Charlie, that people will still defend Trump and will still, none of these people are good people. Trump had all the time in the world. He even, Steve Bannon, thank you, Jay. I'm sorry. I don't know how Steve Bannon, how I forgot about Sloppy Steve.
Yeah.
But nothing happened. You're right. Nothing happened. Israel got everything it wanted and more. And I mean, where did it get us? It got us nowhere. I mean, it literally set up for Biden, and the division is worse than ever. Look at the money for the fighting against election fraud with Stop the Steal and all the money being donated to Trump and everything. It came out, and take this from what you will, it came out from Washington Post and New York Times, but it seems, right, that the money was being traced back to offshore bank accounts in Jared Kushner's name. And Trump was using it to pay back campaign debts.
Yeah.
It wasn't being used to stop the steal. Trump had all the time in the world to stop the steal. His Election Integrity Committee, which, by the way, had CMP Tom Cotton on it and CMP John Kenneth Blackwell, the gentleman I mentioned earlier, they didn't fix nothing. Yeah. He had all the time in the world to fix the election and didn't do anything. He's not our guy. Never was.
Maybe that's not the steal he was planning on stopping.
Yeah.
They didn't specify. I mean, the selective amnesia for a lot of the people in the country on both sides with their candidates, and they say Joe Biden's going to unify us, and Joe Biden's going to bring dignity and honor back to the White House. Would you like to watch a compilation video of like Joe Biden's lies for like 8 minutes straight? I mean, this sort of honor, and so there's that, and then there's the Trump side too. I mean, we can put together an even longer compilation of all the times he's been lying. So I feel like there's been a lot of people just selectively forgetting some of the horrible things that their guy did because he's their guy. And it's like, well, it's just the cost of doing business. I mean, all the justifications. Well, listen, if you want to get somewhere in this business, you're going to have to make some deals that you didn't want to make. I understand how Washington, D.C. functions. It's dysfunctional. It runs on blood and oil and money and blackmail, and all the worst components of society find their way into Washington. It is a magnet for psychopaths because you've got all the things that psychopaths love: power, money, fame. You can do whatever you want there. Whatever you're into, they can make it happen for you there. So it is like moths to the flame of it just psychopathic, the worst type of people. And then we debate about which one of these psychopaths we want in charge of the show. Yeah. And then we act surprised when they act like the psychopaths that they are. I mean, we don't, of course, but I mean, and the listeners don't. They understand this stuff. But the average person is scratching their head going, I can't believe these politicians are such screw ups. Here's another one. This guy went hiking on the Appalachia Trail with his girlfriend, and it's like, you don't understand. It's by design. These people are there not accidentally, not like, how did these defective human beings slip through the quality control process and wind up in Washington, D.C.? It's like, no. There is no quality control, except that it's reverse. It's, let's find all the good people and make sure they don't get in, because they'll start doing things. We don't want them doing things. We want the psychos in there that we have the control files on, that we can make them do things the way we want them to do it. And then, and this return to order with Joe Biden isn't a return to actual order, not in a real sense, not in a human being sense, like how we consider order in our families and our friends and communities and everything. It's just a return back to open psychopathy with the same people running the shows and the same game being played. But it's not a return. It's a return to normalcy for them.
Hashtag new normal.
Yeah, hashtag new normal. Exactly. It's a return to the new normal for them. But it's definitely a return to government without representation for us, which is the way it's been for so long. And we're left fighting about which one of our professional wrestling characters we like the most.
Yeah. Is there anything you want to say in closing, Charlie? I'm definitely going to have you back on, man. It's been, everybody in the chat loved it. They enjoyed it.
Well, I want to say this.
Where can people find you? I have everything in the show notes, but where can people find you too as well?
Yeah, I want to say this about what you and I were talking about before we started recording the show, is that you were on my show, Macroaggressions, a couple of weeks ago. And I'm now 87 episodes into my show. I started it just about a year ago. And I've never had more positive feedback from an episode than the episode I did with you. And that includes David Icke as well, being on there, who got a ton of views. I got a lot of comments. I got a lot of feedback. Everybody loved your episode. So for those of you out there watching this, and you're obviously watching this because you love John. We all love John. John knows his shit, for sure. If you want to get a little taste of him off of this show, go to my show, Macroaggressions, and take a look at the episode. It's just a couple of weeks ago. And listen to the episode with John. Yeah. There it is. The hidden hand of DC politics. And I think you'll understand why I got so much positive feedback from that. Because you have a unique ability to take these complicated and very murky DC connections and explain them in a way that makes sense to people, to just the people that don't have the time and energy to focus into all this. You lay it out in a way that's very logical and makes sense, and you name names and you show their connections, and then you allow us to sort of take that information and extrapolate and think about what that could possibly mean as far as the hidden hand of DC politics, who's really running the show. So for people that if they're interested, my show is called Macroaggressions. Yes. It's out on Apple and Spotify and iHeartRadio and Rockfin and YouTube and David Icke's platform Iconic. So you can find it just about anywhere. Go listen to that episode and then go listen to that episode and then email me and tell me if I'm not correct in saying that you'll understand why people liked the show so much. Because of all the things that I said. So anyway, it was great for anyone in my circle that wasn't familiar with you. Now they're like, oh, and the number one request was just more of you. So yeah, you'll be back on my show, and I'd love to come back on your show.
Yes, you're definitely going to have you on, Charlie. This has been an excellent discussion. I loved the episode that you did with Jimmy Jean, who's both a mutual friend of ours from Into the Microcosm, with Jimmy, and also the episode that you did on Wikipedia. I think the woman's name was Helen.
With Helen, yeah.
Yes.
She's a writer for RT. She gets to do, because when you're a writer for RT, they give you the flexibility that a lot of places don't give you.
There was some interesting talk about, I will talk. It's a big discussion, but I have my own, information on the foundation of Wikipedia and it kind of reminds me too of a lot of these companies that kind of showed up on the internet, and the figureheads that they put in front of them who are wealthy. And Mark from Music Talk Live has spoken about this a lot. But he has mentioned, and I agree with him. I mean, Jimmy Jeans also mentioned this too. LifeLog, with DARPA became Facebook.
Yeah.
And they just put Zuckerberg out there as a face. So.
Yeah. Isn't it funny how they do that? How there's two narratives. There's started a company in my Harvard dorm room as a freshman, geeky guy with stolen technology, and then that turns into a massive company, Microsoft with Bill Gates, Facebook with Mark Zuckerberg. Or the other narrative is, we don't know what we're doing. We just started this company in our garages in Palo Alto and got lucky. Google, Hewlett Packard, all these other 23andMe, these other like offshoots of that just happen to also take money from In-Q-Tel or have connections to Sequoia, or these Kleiner Perkins, all these VC firms out there that just so happen to also be working with the DoD. And what a coincidence, huh? And David Icke and I talked about that too. How he was telling me how he watched this show where they had all the garages, the garage doors from all of the companies where this is where so and so was started. This is where we have the actual garage door in this museum. And he was going, seems like a interesting narrative there that they just keep running the same play over and over again, which is, oh, we don't know, just this technology found its way into these kooky tech nerd guys. We're going to make them billionaires, and you can focus all your love or hatred on them. And meanwhile, it's perfect cover for who's actually running the show there.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, shout out to Wayne McCroy in the chat, Chemical Tech Revolution. I have Wayne back on. You should actually have Wayne on macroaggressions.
Oh, yeah. Charlie. I should.
I think you would enjoy Wayne a lot. But yes. He mentioned Amazon. He mentioned Jeff Bezos. I mean, what am I gonna say? They put. Mark from Usai Live and I've done a lot of good research showing that Warren Buffett is really who's behind and pulls the strings behind Bill Gates, and everybody casts all their hate directly onto Bill Gates, but in reality, it's really Warren Buffett behind Bill Gates.
They're just playing bridge together. Nothing to see here.
Yeah, nothing.
Playing bridge, eating at Dairy Queen, having themselves a Coke. No problem.
Yeah, no, going mattress shopping. That's all. It's normal. It's a normal thing. But, thank you for coming on, Charlie.
Thanks for having me, John. I appreciate it.
Anytime. All right, everybody. We'll talk to you later. Take care. God bless. See you soon.